Hello everyone, I'm Dan Stoll, the Director of Communications from Rutgers Business School. I'm here today with Dr. Farrokh Langdana, Professor of Finance and Economics and the Director of the Executive MBA program. Welcome, Farrokh.
Thank you, Dan.
So, Farrokh, how long have you been the Director of the Executive MBA program?
I've been the director for 18 years now. I was supposed to do it for 3 years, it's now 18 years. So there you go.
So the Executive MBA program at Rutgers has a slogan, it's called Welcome to the Powerhouse. What does that mean?
Well, I guess that comes from my engineering background, so I'm an engineer, my undergraduate degree, and the powerhouse is something that is where the energy lies. It's the focus, the center point of all energy. It's pulsating, it's vibrant, and so that's where the powerhouse comes from. And it worked, it stuck. So.
And the Rutgers Executive MBA program has been consistently ranked globally for many, many years. How has it been able to maintain that level of sophistication and consistency with the rankings?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and yes, it does. It has indeed been ranked consistently for many years. And it starts with the students. The students are amazing. We look for 10 years of work experience, and we get an average of 14 or 16 years of work experience. So I've been running this program for so many years. They never cease to amaze me. They do 4 courses and sometimes 5 courses a semester, and they still nail them, and they're still amazing. And then it's the faculty. We have superstars teaching in this program. And these are professors who have real-world experience. So the material they teach is not just pure esoteric theory. It's a combination of cutting-edge theory and real-world applications. Remember, these are executives who don't have time to waste. Our mantra is that they will use next week what we do in class this week. And so it's really a tough balance for the professors to do theory and practice at the right level. And also, the professors should be able to synergize and leverage, really, the experience in the classroom. When I'm teaching macroeconomics, there'll be somebody in the classroom who will know more about taxation than I'll ever know, for example. And how do you leverage that and make sure the class appreciates that? And the last leg of that rankings is service. We've been ranked #1 in the country in customer service. So the EMBA staff, the Executive MBA staff, has been phenomenal. So it's a combination of professors, staff, and students. But it really comes to value added. Once you add value in the classroom, that's 95% of the battle.
So what is the student profile? I mean, who are these students in your program?
That's a great question, and I wish there was some consistency. So 1 year we'll have 6 doctors, next year we'll have 1. 1 year we'll have 9 lawyers, next year we'll have 2. But typically the average age is 39, 40. The individuals are people who are at the vice president level or are reporting to a vice president.
Okay.
Just mid to senior level executives. The pharmaceutical sector is well represented. Now the IT sector is well represented. But then you'll have a curator of the Brooklyn Museum in there. You'll have the director of the Princeton Ballet in there. So the range of the diversity, we have not-for-profits in there, Oh, and we have this time Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. And I love them because they bring in the leadership aspect. These are natural leaders, and I love students from the armed forces. So it's just an amazing and diverse and high energy atmosphere that I work in.
Now this area has a lot of other executive MBA programs to choose from. You could go to NYU or Columbia or even Wharton, and you're here in Rutgers in New Jersey. Why do they choose Rutgers?
Well, that's another interesting question, and quite a few, almost 40% of our students have admission in some of these other programs and actually have funding. And they kept telling us 7, 8, 10 years ago that just coming to the open house, they realized that this wasn't a typical executive MBA program. They are often dog-eat-dog programs, they're ruthless. And our program is quite different. And we didn't even realize that till 7, 8, 10 years ago when we kept hearing this from the students. It's a very collegial, it's a very collaborative atmosphere. The students miss classes, there'll be 5 people who give them notes. Some of these other programs, apparently, it's so vicious that if you miss classes, that's it, you don't get notes. So the atmosphere is friendly, and it's the courses. We change the curriculum every year. When we threw out Sarbanes-Oxley, Other programs we're just introducing it. So we change, literally my macroeconomic scores changes every semester depending on what's happening in class. And I use the Wall Street Journal as my textbook in most cases.
So what is the return on investment for the graduates?
So the Wall Street Journal used to do that, the Executive MBA rankings, and they stopped, I think, a couple of 3 years ago. But we were number 8 in North America on return on investment, according to the Wall Street Journal. Financial Times does this now for students who graduated 2 years ago, and the last one was 43%. So 43% increase in salary on average 2 years after graduation. And sometimes I joke and say I should go back into my own program for that kind of
Well, for the graduates of 2016, how is the economy going to look for them in the U.S.?
Well, interestingly, most of these students are already in mid and upper level positions, and they're heading in the right direction. But those who are in transition, I'm actually very hopeful. I see signs of traction in the economy, and you know me, I'm an economist, so if I didn't, I would. But I am seeing signs of traction, and the best way to see signs of traction or the absence thereof in an economy is to look at trading partners of this country. So when you look at Europe and Asia, and so we have executive MBAs in Europe and Asia, and I talk to them frequently. These are my former students, and they tell me that hotel occupancy rates, there's a gentleman in Singapore, former student who is an executive for 300, I think, conference facilities in the US, a company that runs them. And he's seeing greater occupancy rates, greater traction, and so on and so forth. So I am seeing traction in the economy.
So the US, how connected is it to the whole global economy? Is it on its own, or is it tied to what happens in China and Europe?
Well, it is in terms of capital flow,
Okay.
and so that's going to be interesting when the interest rates go up. But I think for us, it's going to be housing driven. As long as housing keeps inching up, little by little, we will be fine. But our lack of growth so far has been driven by the fact that the housing market has gone underwater. And keep in mind, this last recession was a consumption-driven recession, and they are long. It was like 1981. These are long, flat recessions. So it takes a while to get into them. It takes a while to get out of them.
Now you mentioned interest rates. There's been a lot of talk that the Federal Reserve is going to raise them possibly in December after pretty much having it near zero since 2009. What would the increase do to the economic outlook in 2016?
Frankly, the increase wouldn't do much. It's already factored in, I think. But there's so much hysteria. It's almost like the sky is going to fall on our heads if interest rates go up. When interest rates were coming down, it was supposed to jumpstart the economy, and it didn't. It was called a liquidity trap. So similarly, there'll be a mirror image on the way up. And the thing is, we have to raise them. By raising interest rates, we are sucking in the money we've printed. There's so much liquidity sloshing around. That's dangerous. Without going into too much detail, there's another blog somewhere that talks about this. So we need to eventually suck this liquidity back in, all the money we've been printing, the quantitative easing for so many years. And so when raising interest rates, to me, is the first step in shrinking this liquidity, because that's dangerous. If the economy picks up, if money starts changing hands, there is always a specter of inflation that will increase. And so I would like this liquidity to be sucked back in.
So you're saying that the rise in interest rates is actually already worked into the market?
There's been so much hype about it. It has been. What will be interesting to see is what happens to emerging economies. There was something called the taper tantrum in 2013 when we were talking about raising interest rates, and hot capital flooded back into the United States, and it hammered the currencies of most every other country, emerging economy. The currencies got 20-30% down, depreciation. And so there's a sense, what will happen when we raise interest rates, when the hot capital flood back into the US? But from what I'm seeing, it's already happened. It's already been factored in this time.
What about wages? Because I think for the last 40 years, wages for the average U.S. worker has been flat while productivity has doubled. Is there any hopeful signs for that in the future?
That's an excellent question, Dan. And actually, Janet Yellen has been going on about she's seeing wage pressure, and so she wants to cool down the economy, which to me is frankly absurd. You see wage pressure when an economy is overheating and growing rapidly. not at this stage at 1.5% growth. Keep in mind also that the participation rate is down to 1970s levels, like 1976 levels. So many people have dropped out of the labor force. And so as more of these people come back into the labor force, it'll keep wages low. You're increasing the size of the pie. So as long as the participation rate is so low and all this labor slack is sitting out there, I don't see any wage pressure. Now you're seeing wage pressure at the McDonald's level and Burger King, the fast food retail level, but that's not what we're talking about here.
What about the specter of inflation? You say that there's all this liquidity. I've been, reading your blogs, Professor Langdana. There's always this idea that inflation will come. What's your sort of outlook for that?
Yeah, thank you. And that's something that a bunch of us have been worried about, and a large number of people are going, see, there's no hyperinflation. You guys have been crowing about hyperinflation. First of all, we haven't been crowing about hyperinflation. Secondly, hyperinflation happens when the money that's printed is spent. If it sits there, nothing happens. It's just a danger. So what happened is we printed all this money. Borrowers weren't borrowing because confidence was low. Businesses weren't borrowing because business confidence was low. It's called the liquidity trap. And lenders weren't lending because they lost their shirts in the subprime crisis. So the money was sitting there. And so when that happens, there is no inflation. So the concern was if economy were to recover, if confidence were to pick up, you would see inflation. And so that's why there's no inflation or hyperinflation.
But in fact, so the economy's been growing to what, 2%?
It's down to 1.5. It's slowed down a bit right now. This is now early December.
So that's not really a strong economic growth. What's going to cure? What would be the? How can we fix this sort of economic malaise that sort of settled in since the 2008?
Well, from a macroeconomic perspective, it would be essentially. Don't want to take sides, but the Keynesian story, which was large spending, large printing of money, has run dry. It was needed right in the subprime crisis. We needed to inject liquidity, but that game is over. The supply siders, the guys in the red ties, are coming up with a supply side model, and that's low regulation, low taxes, but mom and pop America are not ready for businesses to be given low regulation and low tax, not no business regulation. My answer is it's going to be mom and pop America that will rescue us. As an immigrant, I can look at America from inside and outside, and what I've noticed is that this is a restless country. We Americans are restless people. You can't keep us down too long. Somebody will come up with the next big thing, or there will be a next big Netscape browser kind of big thing. It has to happen. Right now it's not happening. Innovation's dried up. But this is a very restless country. There's always people moving around with innovation. And so it's going to be mom and pop America that are going to come up with the salvation. We'll need help from the government. The burden of excessive regulation since subprime crisis is too much. It's too hard to do business.
So you're saying mom and pop. What about the tech industry right now? They seem to be innovating. There's a new internet company every week, or is that going to take us out for the
I wish I could say yes,
yeah.
But it's the most innocuous beginning sometimes that gives you the next big thing. And I just don't know enough about what the spark is, what's it going to look like. Is it nano, is it biotech, is it health related, is it energy related? So many of these are red herrings, they go nowhere. I wish I could give you more.
Are you optimistic for 2016?
Oh, I'm very optimistic. I'm very optimistic. Because, again, it takes a lot. I wish that our leaders would speak to the country and remind Americans that we have been in these dark corners before. Corners far darker than the ones we have been lately. We were there at Antietam. We were there on 9/11. We were there on December 7th, 1941. And throughout Vietnam, we've been in these dark corners. And we've bounced back. And every time we've bounced back, we've done it in stupendous fashion. But the thing is, most Americans don't realize that. They don't know their history. They don't know the history of these dark corners. So we need our leaders to stop being so pessimistic and stop focusing on themselves and reminding Americans that we've done it before, we can do it again.
Great. 2016, there'll be another election, so we'll see what happens with our leaders. Anything you want to say about Giving Day for Rutgers Business School?
Absolutely. Do help out, folks. As you all know, the state funding for universities, especially Rutgers, has been steadily going down. And this is money well spent. We know in macroeconomics, we talk of good spending and bad spending, as in cash for clunkers, that's obviously bad spending. Good spending would be NSF grants, innovation, productivity. We talked about innovation here. This is where research happens. These are the hotbeds. This is the ecosystem where new ideas are born. And keep in mind, venture capitalists don't fund equations on a piece of paper. They don't fund funky-looking liquids in a test tube. They fund things they can hold and brag about in their hands. And so we need your help to fund early upstream research. And this is where you come in and maybe help us find the next big thing.
Farrokh, thank you. Thank you.